I could not stop shaking for hours, literally, and for years after that I had panic attacks and night sweats at the thought of what would happen if there was suddenly no food available. It would just be horrific. If you can grow your own food, you are not nearly as manageable. I've spent the last 20 years figuring out how to take somebody who knows absolutely nothing, they're older, maybe they're out of shape, and how to get them producing food very, very quickly in just a backyard-sized space. I mean, even just the size of 3 parking spots. There's like $9 trillion worth of debt that has to be refinanced from the U.S. government this year, and most of it is coming up before June. So we're in just this incredible world of hurt. I know since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, they all talked about how unsustainable and what this was, and that someday it would all fall apart. It was a house of cards. I think it was Roy Rogers who said, it happens slowly until you go broke all at once. And we are at that where it's going broke right now.
Welcome, Marjory Wildcraft. We're really glad to have you today, and we're going to jump right in. So, you've spent years empowering people to grow their own food. Why do you think right now is such an important time for skills like that?
Yeah, well, Rick and Shelley, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. And the reason I'm on this podcast today is that it is so vital to get more people growing food right now. So as we're recording this, it's April 2025. The US dollar is in dire, dire trouble. The banking system is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve, which the banking system backs on, is bankrupt. And the US government, which the Federal Reserve backs up on, is bankrupt. I mean, the whole thing is completely done. The bond market, they've been trying to sell more debt, and they're not buying it anymore because Trump made tariffs, right? So we've got this whole, there's like $9 trillion worth of debt that has to be refinanced from the US government this year, and most of it is coming up before June. So we're in just this incredible world of hurt. And I know since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, they all talked about how unsustainable and what this was, and that someday it would all fall apart. It was a house of cards. I think it was Roy Rogers who said, it happens slowly until you go broke all at once. And we are at that where it's going broke right now. And I think even we're already seeing it. You're seeing incredible volatility in prices of everything from eggs and chocolate and whatever going up and down, and the market's going crazy up and down. This is a sign of systemic instability. And one of the big consequences of, say, for example, the banking system shutting down is you will not be able to get food. Grocery stores will be closed, credit cards won't work, that kind of thing. And we really are headed into that type of scenario here very, very soon. So I'm not wanting to go down the fear porn road.
Right.
This is the reality road. It might be a little harder.
Wow. Yeah.
But the thing is I've spent the last 20 years figuring out how to take somebody who knows absolutely nothing, they're older, maybe they're out of shape, and how to get them producing food very, very quickly in just a backyard-sized space. I mean, even just the size of 3 parking spots. So you can do this. I just want to let you know that you can do this. And yeah, that's what it's. The situation is dire. We're at the 9th hour and the 59th minute. So you need to get on this right away.
Mm. Do you see a change? Do you see people like seeing that? Is it moving from fringe to mainstream? Like, is the message resonating from where you sit?
The way I see it is, I'm just, all kinds of podcasters are calling me up. Hey, can you come on the show? We realize that things are changing fast, and we need more self-reliance. I train jiu-jitsu, and at the gym, people are like, we know something big is coming. We just don't know what it is or when. So there's this real sense of unease. And then, of course, I don't shop at the grocery store that much, but, I'm seeing the prices going up and up, and everybody sees the prices going up and up. So it's, it's happening, and I am seeing more and more people suddenly becoming very, very interested. I run every other month to build local community and service to the community, and then to really try to strengthen my community. I host a plant and seed swap party. And people, you guys know you grow, right? Yeah. And there's always extra plants and extra seeds. And right. I often grow 3 times as many starts as I need because stuff happens, but then I have a whole bunch of it. So everybody always has extras. And so every other month I host this event, which is wonderful. And lots of people show up, and I've just been noticing a real heightened interest in it, greater participation in that, people becoming more and more concerned and going, yeah, I really need to figure out this food growing thing. And I'm like, yes, you absolutely do. Here, let me show you.
Right.
That's fantastic. So the Grow Network you started, tell us just a little bit about that, and how has the community developed over the years?
Yeah, thank you. So if you never grew food before, I can totally relate. So, I grew up in somewhat of a poor family in South Florida, in North Miami, and as kids, a lot of kids that grow up in that kind of condition, I was very, very interested in money. I ended up getting an electrical engineering degree and scoring. I'd always wanted to travel overseas, so I scored a position in Hong Kong. And I ended up being the section manager of engineering for Motorola there. And Hong Kong is like ultra capitalistic. Like the Hong Kong Chinese are incredible business people. And they said, hey, Marjory, you got to take this course with this guy named Robert. And I'm like, okay, it's all about wealth. And that course just blew my mind so much. This guy was teaching things I'd never heard about, really explaining it. And it inspired me so much that I left engineering and ended up creating a real estate investment business in Austin, Texas. I made my first million by the time I was 40. And my business was so successful that Robert asked me if I'd be on his infomercials. So for 4 years, I was on a Rich Dad, Poor Dad infomercials selling Robert Kiyosaki's books and courses. And you'll notice there's no food growing in here. I had I hadn't done anything
Right.
about like a lot of people, more of a corporate kind of focus. And I was volunteering on a project to get locally grown food into an elementary school. Just a good volunteer project. I thought it's so innocent. I had no idea it was going to completely change my life. That project was an utter failure. And I will never forget the night that it absolutely failed. I mean, I couldn't stop shaking. And what we realized was there were not enough local organic farmers to provide even part of the vegetables to one small rural elementary school. And this is in Central Texas. Texas has some big counties. They're just all the Willie Nelson concerts to save the small family farm had not worked. And the drive from Austin to Red Rock, about an hour drive, suddenly made so much sense. I mean, you see some woods here, a new Dollar General over there, a new subdivision. You don't see any food growing out. Maybe a few places with a little bit of cattle, but it's all gone. And I knew that food, there's only 4 days worth of food in the inventory in the grocery store, that it travels to you 1,500 miles. And at that time, I was surrounded by 20 million Texans who are armed to the teeth. And I had 2 kids, 2 small kids. And I'm like, oh my God, there are situations where no amount of money can buy you what you need. And I also, really, literally, God just picked me up and shook me. I could not stop shaking for hours, literally. And for years after that, I had panic attacks and night sweats at the thought of what would happen if there was suddenly no food available. It would just be horrific. I mean, really. So I just said, okay, universe, I get it. There's plenty of people who know how to make money. I don't need to do that. There's not hardly anybody who knows how to grow food. So let me figure that out. And then as you know, I'm sure, once you get into it, you immediately realize how you need community for genetics and all sorts of support.
Right.
And so I started building a self-reliant community out there and teaching people. And then I started figuring out some systems and how it worked. And I started teaching people, and they said, you got to make a video out of this. So I took a year off back then. This is like 2008, 2009. Videography was way more expensive and time consuming than it is now, and made a video. And I thought that'd be it, because I love the growing food part. And good, it'll sell itself. No, it doesn't sell itself. No, not at all. But we'd spent $30,000 of the family savings. I got to figure out how to sell these videos. And you find out that a one product is not a good business model. And but there were also so many other things I were learning that were vitally important, like how to treat infections without antibiotics. How to grow things in apartments and condominiums, or basic home medicine. How do you take care of your family when there are no drugstores, or even if you don't want to go to a drugstore now, right? So I ended up kept making more products and doing more things, and trying to figure it out, and that's how the Grow Network got built.
Wow. Give us some tips for a first-time gardener to, like, how do they not get overwhelmed? We grow our own garden. It's very important for us. We basically eat mostly meat. We follow a ketogenic lifestyle and diet, and the garden is more important for us because we were wanting to build the soil that it takes to grow food. And so like the first year, though, we did not do very well. Like the soil was young and it wasn't great. And it was a drive for us just to be self-sufficient on a food perspective that forced us to keep going. But what do you see with people as they start, and what do you say when that discouraging first failure happens?
Well, actually, I'd back up a second, and I know most people think of me as all about gardens, but honestly, and I'm glad you're on the carnivore thing, animal products are much, much easier to grow. And of all the different ways to produce food, and there are thousands of ways to get food, right? I've cherry-picked the 3 easiest and simplest, and I put it in that free webinar. But the first thing I recommend people do is get a small flock of laying hens.
Yes.
Get them at 6 months old, so they're mature enough to lay eggs. And really, you can do this in even a couple of weekends. Build a coop and run. Get the feed set up, get the feed and water set up before you buy the hens. Remember that, Marjory? Yep. I know you guys have done something like that before. You buy the livestock, and then you're like, "Where's the hose?" Anyway, do it beforehand. And if you're not, they're pretty easy to build. And we've got some different plans and stuff at that webinar. But get somebody to build it. It can be done in a couple of weekends. And go on Craigslist or wherever, buy a set of laying hens, and after a few days, when they've settled in, you're going to have breakfast handled, like for the rest of your life, right? 6 laying hens, just to give you a snapshot. They lay an average of 250 eggs a year, right? So they take some time off to molt, or because it's too hot or too cold. 250 eggs, so 6 laying hens, that's 1,500 eggs in a year. So that's going to be 3 egg omelets for you for every morning for breakfast. So you've now got breakfast completely handled, which apparently is the most important meal of the day. And you've got 33 dozen eggs to share or trade or give away. And honestly, I find that the 3-component system I have has chickens and a garden and a rabbitry, but really the chickens and the rabbits are way easier than the garden. And I really recommend people start with chickens first. Also, you can start with chickens any time of year, right? It can be cold, you can still build it and do it. Whereas the gardening, that is a little more nuanced. You want to get that at the right time. So, I really recommend chickens.
And you still need protein, even when you can't grow a garden, because many people, a lot of our viewers, they live in Canada or they live up north. You're not gardening. Yeah, you can garden and you can, but they're really limited on their growth season. And if it doesn't go well, maybe their soil wasn't good enough. You've still got an immense amount of food just in your chickens. We advocate for chickens so hard.
Up north, ducks might be a better breed just because they're more adapted to the cold, and very similar. You guys know it's a very similar thing. But they produce, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful entertainment. When we first moved out to the land.
We love duck eggs. We think they're great, and they are very fun to watch when you give them a new pool full of water.
They are. So rabbitry as well, huh?
Yeah, well, the last big push for rabbits was in the 70s here in the United States. And the 70s was a very dicey decade, right? Nixon took us off the gold standard. You had to wait for hours around the block because of the whole oil OPEC thing going on. There was a mass shooting at the Olympics in Russia. It was a crazy, crazy decade. Like crazier than what we're getting into now. And and everybody got rabbits, and it's very simple. They're very small animals. They're quiet, and they reproduce like rabbits. You get a lot of them. The other reason I like them is, and it's the reason why people say, well, Marjorie, why don't I have raised chickens for meat? And the distinction is chickens are omnivores. Like they like to eat grain, they like to eat vegetables, they like to eat meat, they like to eat, and they do eat some greens, whereas rabbits are herbivores. And you can it's pretty easy to come up with an entire diet for rabbits. When you're pruning your trees in the wintertime, they love the bark. They'll chew on that. They love the fresh leaves. A lot of times just your landscape trimmings is a wonderful thing. It's pretty easy to grow some nice protein-rich plants for them. I used to use a scythe in the morning and just cut them some either grasses or forbs and toss it in. When you're weeding, I had my rabbitry right next to my garden, and when you're weeding, the rabbits would be like, yay, yay, because they knew that those weeds are going to be coming into them, and they loved it. So again, let me go over some numbers. I recommend a buck and 3 breeding does, and that again will fit in like a parking lot size space, maybe 120 square feet. And that will produce 75 to 85 rabbits a year. You could push it, like industrially, they push them a lot more, but I don't like to breed my does too hard. You want to give them some break in between. A typical rabbit, I often harvest mine a little bit late. The optimal feed to weight ratio is somewhere around, like similar to chickens, like around 6 weeks. But I tend to let mine get a lot bigger for 2 reasons. And one is I'm not particularly fond of butchering, so I just procrastinate.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Like it goes on. And then finally, okay, this rabbit's pretty fat. But the other reason is the most difficult macronutrients to produce anywhere, but especially a backyard, is going to be fat.
Fat. Mm-hmm. It's hard to put fat on them.
There's no fatty vegetables in your garden.
Right.
And so I like to let those rabbits put some fat on, as you really need fat in your diet. The other most difficult thing to produce is protein. And we do have vegetables and things like that in the garden with beans or legumes and all that, but it's much, much easier to raise chickens for eggs and rabbits for meat to get your protein. In fact, a buck and 3 breeding does will provide the protein requirements for a family of 4. So if you think about it, it ends up being like, let's say it's, 75, 85 rabbits a year. Every rabbit is just exactly equivalent to what you do with cooking chicken. And in fact, I've often served rabbit and forgot to tell people, and they just assumed it was chicken. And so if you think about it, that's like a chicken and a half every week.
Every week, yeah.
Which is a pretty good amount of food. I would roast the rabbit, and then we didn't quite all eat it, except for if my son came home with his friends. Boys, they are astonishing how much they pack. But there'd be some left, and we'd I'd keep that in a stew pot and make a really nice stew out of it, and then of course save the bones and make a bone broth. And the organs, oh my God, I know in our culture that eating organs is not a thing, but it should be. Like liver is going to be the most nutritionally dense food that you can create in your backyard. It's unbelievable what's in. Look it up. I don't have all the numbers in front of me now, but it's incredibly. It was the most highly valued part of the animal among all indigenous populations around the planet. But I would never trust eating a liver from a commercially grown, even if a farmer says it's organic or what. I really need that animal to be something that I'm absolutely certain, because the organs tend to be filter.
Sure.
Right.
So you don't want to eat that. So you want to make sure that they're really clean and pristine and preferably young.
Yeah.
But amazing food source, and they're if you've got an HOA problem, nobody's going to know you have rabbits back there.
Right.
Right.
They're so quiet. Sure.
So you wrote the Grow System book.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And if you have it, do you have one with you? Yes.
I do.
Okay, good. Okay, and we'll put a link to that for sure in the show, in the description. What do you believe is the biggest lie that Americans have been told about our food system?
Yeah. I believe that there's actually been an intentional psychological operation to convince you not to grow, that you can't grow food, and that it's growing food is demeaning work or something like that.
Yes.
And my evidence for that is pretty much every movie or sitcom or television or most books that you read. They portray the farmer as an idiot. If somebody's gardening, they're a doddering old person that has lost their mind, or they're a desperate migrant worker that can't afford to do anything else. I mean, they just really portray it as, demeaning or beneath someone. And nothing could be further from the truth. Right. It's such a wonderful activity. It's just wonderful, and it's so healing, and the food is so good, and the process of growing food is healthier than even the products. So, but I believe it's been intentional, because if you can grow your own food, you are not nearly as manageable as if you are dependent on that grocery store, or that a social credit score, or your real ID, or whatever they're tracking us with. Mm-hmm. If you have that degree of freedom from it, it's a revolutionary act to grow your own food, and I believe that the powers that be that know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, dig a little deeper into the process of growing your own food is more important than growing your own food. What are you thinking?
Oh yeah, so. Eating healthy food is really good,
sure,
but going outside and being outside in the sunlight for a minute, the gentle exercise that comes with most backyard. Now, this is not farming. Farming is a little more than gentle exercise, but backyard production is generally pretty gentle exercise. Your electronics and soil and water don't mix, so you're going to put that device away, which is very good for you. And you're creating something that nourishes yourself, and you're connecting with it. And I think that, and then doing that every day, it's like peace of mind. I did a series. I've been trying to get people to grow food forever. One thing I did was this whole series of interviews with these really high power, high level people that grew, half an hour to an hour a day. And so this would be like a CEO of a high-tech startup with 25 million in seed funding, or a high-level director of a health insurance company with a division of 2,000 people underneath him. You know what I'm talking about? These kind of people that
right.
Oh yeah,
they could afford anything they want. They're not doing it for that, but they loved it because they're still very highly productive people, so they want to produce something, but this was going out in the garden, and they loved it, like the salsa or their multicolored eggs or whatever it was that they were into. They were just so proud of that because it was tangible and it was real. And they said over and over again, they're in extremely stressful jobs. And they said that was the time that they could really, truly decompress, was when they were out there working with whatever it was that they were producing.
Well, I remember, quick story. I remember when he was working in the Pentagon, and it was a very stressful time those particular years. And we had a backyard garden, and we've always had some, if we were able to, we had some semblance of a backyard garden.
And chickens.
When
we could.
In the suburbs, we did. And so we had that going, and he would come home in the evenings, and that would be his therapy, if you will, was getting out there, working, tending to the garden, picking the vegetables, planting it, whatever was going on. And just that decompression of having your hands in the dirt. And you haven't mentioned this yet, but to me also, it's, having our skin touch the actual soil and the biology and all of the things that are in the soil, and the smell of soil when you're out there working in the garden. You can smell the life in soil. And I think I read somewhere our brains can smell soil similar to a shark smelling blood. And when we smell that, it's because we're supposed to know that life is there and, bring us life as we plant. So yeah, it is really, really therapeutic.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's something wonderful about the smell of good, rich soil. You're right. It's really therapeutic. Just smelling it. Yeah.
Yeah. We're actually working our garden right now. We use the chickens over the wintertime. We put them in the garden area. So they clean up the what's left after the fall garden is final picking. The chickens go in and then they spend their winter in the garden cleaning it up and revitalizing the soil. And they moved out a couple of weeks ago. We let it rest, and now we're tilling and getting it ready to plant this year.
Yeah, beautiful. I used to have my rabbitry right next to the garden, and so not only when I weeded, but then every now and then the right underneath the rabbitry was a compost pile, and I would just use a pitchfork, because rabbit manure is cool enough, right? Chicken manure is a little bit hot. You need to let that compost, but rabbit pure herbivore manure, and I would just use a pitchfork and just throw it right. I mean, ergonomics is so important. None of us has as much time as we'd like to spend out there. So you really need to structure systems. That's why also I really recommend people start small, right? You're going to have a lot more success that way. And it's astonishing how much you can grow, like that simple system that I have, with 2 garden beds, 100 square feet of garden, the 6 laying hens, and then the small rabbitry. It can fit into 3 parking spots. It would be better if you had more room, for sure. But you can grow half of your own food in I don't know, half an hour a day, maybe less. So and I laid that out in that webinar with the calories and the portions, and I show you what 100 pounds of potatoes looks like, and or what rabbit, what meals I've cooked with rabbit, or so.
That's sweet. So you've become associated with the Make America Healthy Again movement. What drew you to that?
I have not officially. We're discussing it. Yeah, and I gotta say, I was really disappointed with RFK on his reversal on the vaccine stance. Before getting elected, we don't, measles, mumps, and rubella, you don't need that. Vitamin A will do it. All of us got it when we were kids. I did too. We were fine. And then right afterwards, oh my God, no, there's a pandemic. Everybody needs to get vaccinated. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, we're still in a lot of discussions, and I'm wanting to be very careful about that. One thing that did sort of push me over in that direction was I got to hang out with Joel Salatin a couple of weeks ago. We were both speaking at an event, and we know each other from years, from all the Mother Earth News circuit that we used to do together. And I said, Joel, so you're a consultant now for the USDA, huh? What did you do there, buddy? You turned coat and all that, and I was giving him a hard time. He's like, he said when they first made him an offer, he was like, no way, I'm not touching this. And then his son took him out behind the barn, said, Dad, you've been bitching about these people for decades, and they have reached out a hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to take it and see what it's all about. So, I mean, my whole mission is to make America healthy again. That's all I've been doing for all these years, because you have to have homegrown food as a part of that, or really good quality food, to be healthy. You can't do it with supplements and all these other cryogenics and whatever else they're coming up with. But I don't know, that organization, they've definitely got an integrity problem.
Got it. Well, I do agree that Joel needs to did need to at least check into that, because we do need people who, if they're asking someone who knows how to farm like that to be involved, it's worth looking into.
The encouraging thing to us, I think, is if anytime they're interviewed and they keep drilling down and asking more and more and more questions about how do you do this? How do you make America healthy again? Oftentimes it comes down to good food and getting off of the ultra processed crap that is pushed on us a lot, and getting back to real food, real good food. And for us, that focus, that even if it's not every time that they're asked, at least the focus on getting back to real food is so important. And that for us is I think a definite plus with where they're going with it.
Well, we'll see. In fact, the latest twist of events with that is like, Bobby's got to do something politically to get this whole vaccine thing off his back. And so shifting over toward focusing on helping people to grow food and backyard food production is what people resort to in any type of crisis. And we are in a crisis. Right. And so they're like, well, maybe this would be a good way to like divert the MAHA movement into something that's empowering and focused and productive. But then on the other hand, I believe Kennedy and all these guys are tied in with the same narrative that has been pumping out those movies and all that stuff. So I don't think they fundamentally want you to be growing your own food. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I'll probably engage with them, but I have to say I'm very nervous about it.
Oh, understandable.
So what do you say to folks when they come to you and they're like, I'm afraid, like I don't know if I can do this. People are going to call me crazy. I'm going to fail, like whatever the excuse is for, I just can't do this.
Yeah. Okay. You are going to fail. Let's just get over that.
Right.
We've all accidentally killed chickens and plants and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it just happens from time to time. You actually are a survivor, and you have this in your genetic and in your heritage, because other than the anomaly of maybe the last 50 to 100 years, prior to that, everybody had a kitchen garden and chickens and something, and everybody was involved with food production or foraging or something, right, throughout all of history. So all of your ancestors did this, and it's in you, even if you've not ever activated it. And I will say that's actually one of the really delightful things, that when you do start getting into this, you'll find there's like this resonance you didn't even know about, and that this rightness, like this is right, this is good, this is what I'm meant to do. The other thing is so I got into it. I told you my story. I was completely freaked out, panic attacks, shaking, actually people calling me crazy. That's another story. Definitely a change in income.
Totally understand that one.
We get it.
Yeah. But it has healed me on every single level that you can be healed. So the physical level, I had horrible allergies and some things going on. That's all gone. And then the good nutrition and the lack of toxicity, because you're growing clean food, will heal you. It's just even just growing half, and it will heal you. And the gentle exercise and the outside. On the emotional level, if the grocery stores are boarded up and the trucks stop running, I mean, we're going to all be in for some change, but I'm not upset about that, right? I'm very calm about that, because I have some fundamental skills, not only for myself, but to help other people in my community, So on the mental level, there's studies, reams and reams of studies that show that children who eat better quality food score higher on intelligence tests, and they have less behavioral problems. So mentally, you'll be much sharper and clearer. And I find that is true. When you eat really good food, you're able to do it. You're on it, right? When you're eating junk, heaven help me, on like after Christmas or something, I don't want to think about anything. And then spiritually, and gosh, we could do many shows on this, and I'm sure you've had all kinds of wonderful things happen. But you think about it, your hands, you're working directly with forces of creation. And regardless of what religion or spirituality you come from, you're working with these really, really amazing, you're working with creation, and magical stuff happens. Like just incredible things happen with either with a relationship with your livestock or plants, or it's just really, really wonderful. So on every single level you can imagine, you will be healed. And no, you're not going to get it all perfectly. Things are going to die. You'll make mistakes. There'll be some problems, but you weren't born knowing how to walk, right? You got to,
right.
You got to take some steps. And so community is so good, hang out with other people who do it. Go to gardening clubs, or if you see a neighbor that's actually got a good garden and maybe you never talked to them, bring them a small gift like a little hand shovel or some gloves or something like that. And I have found the most ornery, curmudgeon type grumpy people, when they get in their garden, their personality changes completely, and they're way calmer and more relaxed. And most gardeners and people who are producing in their backyard, there's an abundance, and you feel that way and you live that way, and they're more than willing to share. So some other possibilities are like 4-H is open to adults. You can find people there, Future Farmers of America. Right. You just start searching for or find a community garden and start hanging out. So build community. Or when you buy your laying hens, go to the person's house and hang out with them for a while. So build a community to help support yourself for when, oh my God, those mites on that chicken. What is that? What do I do? Right? You'll things do come up. So you want to build some community around that.
Pitch us your book and your website. Like, give us how can we follow you? How can we learn more about you and what you're doing?
Okay, sure. I really recommend that webinar because I have had so many people that wanted to learn this system, and it's a 3-part system for how to grow half of your own food in your backyard. Even if you have no experience, you're older and you're out of shape. And I will show you exactly, this is not clickbait. This is something that I have actually taught. Actually, I've taught millions of people, and I know that there have been hundreds of thousands of implementations. And I've taught it to little kids and I've taught it to elders. And it's really designed for that. And once you can grow half, man, that's huge, right? That is really, really huge. And you'll notice it in your health and you'll notice it in everything. That system is easily replicable, by the way. So that way you'll be able to share it and teach it to other family and friends and neighbors. And I hope you do. And the book, by the way, when you get done with the webinar, I'll make you an offer for a book and a training bundle package. But yeah, I was super happy. Penguin Random House published this, and if you know anything about publishing, that's a really big score. Like they're the biggest publisher around, and in this,
sure is.
Yeah. I go through the Grow Half system, and I also have a little bit on home medicine, how to use herbs to treat the 12 most common ailments that come up in a family. And there's some really wonderful graphs and charts and, plans for chicken coops. And there's this really great nutrition versus disease chart. You take a look at that and you'll never eat anything out of the grocery store again, which you shouldn't anyway. So, I would really recommend also if you have kids, Chapter 9. So I got bit by a copperhead snake doing something stupid. Copperheads are generally pretty docile snakes, but we treated it all at home, and it's a potentially fatal snake bite, and I got a really good dose. And we just treated it all at home with natural techniques. And I go through that whole story, and a real important part of the story was my daughter, Kimber, who helped. She knew, I raised her to know this stuff, right? So she helped out a lot, and I found kids, that's Chapter 9, I found kids love that chapter. So before it was in the book, it used to be a little tiny book by itself, and 4th grade teachers would come back to me after giving them one, a copy or two, and then they'd come back and they'd say, listen, the kids love that every year. They all read that. Everybody in the class reads it. Could you get me another copy? Because that one's kind of, torn up. And I'm like, sure, so the kids really resonate, and they love a role model of another kid who can play such an important role as in helping save her mom's life, using herbal medicine. So it's a very empowering story. So, so that's the book. The webinar's at backyardfoodproduction.com. Come on over. Once you sign up, we'll get you rolled on into the Grow Network. And we have a whole gigantic blog and a store and all kinds of courses, and we give away a lot for free, and we're just trying to get people to grow food. And the more people that are producing their food, the easier this transition is going to be, and we're in a big transition. And so that's why I'm out here talking to you today and all of your family and friends.
Oh, perfect. Well, and I'll leave links to all of those things that you just mentioned down in the description of this. And as we wrap up, is there any message? Is there anything that you would want to leave us with?
Yeah, again, I started out with this in fear and in panic and having no experience. And I will say I will always be growing my own food. It is such a delightful and wonderful activity. You're going to love it. So just jump in and do it.
When we encourage people to practice, we might not be strapped right now at the grocery store. We don't eat that either, but you're not strapped right now, but the day can come. We saw it in 2020. We lived in just outside of Washington, DC, and we saw meat rations. We saw empty grocery store shelves. We were not fearful. We had just put a whole beef in our freezer right before the world shut down. So we were fine, but we felt that, and we encourage people to learn how to stock up, learn how to grow. It can happen. So having seen it, we encourage people practice, get the skills. You might not need it right this second, but the day can come where you need to know how to grow your own food.
And just like you said, how important community is to that, because even if you don't have the space to grow a cow, you might have the space to grow a tomato, and I'm willing to trade some hamburger for a tomato, so just the importance of community in that whole thing too.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Yeah. We're in it, y'all. It's happening now. We are well into collapse. The dollar will never die, but they'll just make so many of them that it's worth nothing. So we're going there.
Yes, it does appear that way, doesn't it? Yes. Hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. We thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, Shelley, Rick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you and your community.
Of course. Yeah, thank you.